still on the politics of the 10th Assembly. Senator-elect Abdulaziz Yari has been one of the loudest critics of the APC zoning arrangement, and he spoke a little earlier with our colleagues on the Arise News Morning Show. Take a listen to what he said.
Consulting because it's not a business of party or business of, on the generality, is a country business. Therefore, the party did not do any of the above. So what we only saw in the media was party has 2 meetings and they were given names to adopt. That is not adequate enough, despite the fact that they have said they were not consulted widely in our submission to them, and they are looking forward going to do 1 or 2 things. It doesn't matter. Even if they adopt, as my position is, all of them, they're advisory body. Because the Constitution is very clear, as I said in the afternoon yesterday, that Section 50 sub 1 gives a right only to parliamentarian on that day, and they have only one business to select to take their leaders. So therefore, if the party zoning is a kind of arrangement, it's not in our Constitution in any way that says X has to be Z or X has to be Y, but it's understanding of political party and people to accept this or to reject. So therefore, what we are saying, I here in particular, I'm particularly talking about the APC. APC, if they decide to zone, we ask them question, on what basis? How do you base your zoning? Have you taken the federal character into cognizance, where the president, chief judge of the federation, and the National Assembly chairman, 3 arms are in one place for a decade? We are saying to APC, look, it's the northern Nigeria that gave you the larger board, and by extension, Northwest. Give you the larger board that come to give you the lead, about 2.7 million boards. And if you put total, what do you call it, total board on the percentage ground, the northern Nigeria give Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, president-elect, 63.4% of the total vote came from northern part of the country, while the southern part of the country gave him 66.6%. Okay, if you are doing that, is it fair to say that you give us vice president simply because we are Muslim? It doesn't work that way. So therefore, what we are talking about is about equity and justice.
Well, Governor Yari there making some clarifications earlier on our show. We're now being joined by Arise analyst Mahmud Jega and political analyst Kenny Okolugbo. Gentlemen, good to have you both on Newsline. Let's start with you, Kenny. You've been one of the loudest voices just before your exit from the PDP, speaking of which you vehemently campaigned that the leadership of Nigeria should move to the south. Now, this is about 10th National Assembly. Speak to us on your concerns as it relates to the leadership, specifically the Senate presidency.
Yes, thank you for having me. I listened very carefully to what Senator Yari was saying, and I completely disagree with him. If you look at it objectively, the APC did give Bola Ahmed Tinubu 2.7 million votes from the Northwest. He whips up the sentiments of the judiciary and the National Assembly being in the hands of the South. I don't think the Supreme Court judge, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, has 10 years in the saddle. But that apart, he must also realize that Buhari is from the Northwest, and Buhari has served for 8 years. If he's talking about equity, he should also look at it. He who preaches equity must come with clean hands. APC has never had a square peg in a square hole like the decision to zone the Senate presidency to the South-South. And if you look at it, Akpabio has been a child of destiny. He was the first-time member when he became the minority leader. A lot of people did condemn it because we had 7 senators who had done like 4 years and not 4 years, I mean, some that had done like up to 4 terms in office of the PDP, and he was choosing to become the minority leader. And if you also look at the votes that Akpabio gave to the APC, they gave the APC 160,000 votes, and the PDP got about 14,000 votes for a state that has always been a PDP state. He was able to muster that amount of votes for the APC. If you also look at it from the other perspective, Nigeria is a secular country. You just can't have the Muslims becoming the president, the vice president, and also the Senate president. We should also try to not to be insensitive at this point in time. Akpabio is a Christian. He's from the South. He's been a governor that did a lot when he was a governor in Akwa Ibom State. He's been a minister. He's been a minority leader, and so he's gotten the support of at least 70 members of his colleagues, both elected and those who are serving and have been re-elected. And if you also look at it, this is the first time that you have non-serving senators, 76 of them now, from 72 to 76, and seeing the likes of Ame Ebuta coming up to say that, look, we're supporting this man to become the Senate president. And he has seen that he has a lot on his shoulders at this material point in time to perform. For people like us, we try to be very objective. Like you rightly said, I've always been for the South to take over the leadership of this country. And you remember I actually rooted for the Southeast until my former party decided to go to the North, which was one of the issues that broke the party down to the situation it found itself presently. So I believe that the leadership of the 10th Assembly, having Akpabio as the Senate president, as the chairman of the National Assembly, is really in order. If you look at the other perspective of the North Central, they might have a case, and I don't think the Northwest being accommodated as the deputy Senate president they should complain. I think that should be quite satisfactory in my own perspective.
So, well, Kenny, thank you for that perspective. Well, let's bring the conversation now to the studio and speak with Mahmud Jega. Mahmud Jega, you have listened to, Governor Yari. He's talking about the fact that the Northwest did give 2.6 million votes to Ahmed Tinubu, and of course they deserve it, according to him. But Nigerians are asking, in all of this conversation and this jostle for leadership positions, the place of national stability and, harmony in the nation, where is it in all of this zoning and Muslim or not Muslim or whoever eventually emerges, as especially the president of the 10th Senate?
Well, I think former Governor Yari is fighting a very uphill battle in this matter. You see, this matter of where to zone the National Assembly leadership has never been a fixed matter in Nigerian politics since the Second Republic. It is always determined by the particular circumstances at the time. For example, in the Second Republic, the understanding in the MPN was that since the North produced the president, then the South should produce the number 2 and the number 3, which was why there was Vice President Dr. Alex Ekweme and the Senate President Dr. Joseph Wales. But in 1999, when Chief Obasanjo was produced as the NRC PDP presidential candidate, the report was that he specifically appealed to the northern leaders because they said the same thing. That, okay, we will take number 2 and number 3. And he said, okay, you take number 2, but please allow us to zone the Senate presidency to the southeast because of the unique circumstances that you had produced Obasanjo as the presidential candidate, but PDP had very little following in the southwest, whereas it had a very large following in the southeast. So in order to keep the southeast in the coalition, let's at least give them the Senate president. So it is the circumstance every time that determines what you do. And this time, even though what he already said about the Northwest gave the largest block of geopolitical votes, but then because of the unique situation of the president and the vice president both being of the Muslim faith, it is a very important matter for the APC to really produce somebody of the Christian faith
Mahmud Jega, let me let you expatiate, if you will, because I like that you've taken us back into the Second Republic, which is very important here. Paint for us the importance of the circumstance that we are in as a nation today that explains your points why it shouldn't be the Yari's way.
Well, I think we have said in summary that the party must look at, because APC faced a lot of problems by having a Muslim presidential ticket. But they did it for strategic reasons. They calculated that that was probably the best way to win the election, and somehow the gamble paid off. But now when you come to the next stage of producing the leaders of the National Assembly, now you cannot really hide from the balancing act, the religious in particular and the regional balancing act. If the Senate president comes from the South, like what Yari is arguing, there is a president from the South, now why should number 3 be from the South? Well, it happened before in 1999 due to special circumstances, and the same special circumstances, I think, are occurring now. So it was, in my opinion, quite sensible to zone the Senate presidency to the South-South. Whether going ahead and zoning it personally to Senator Akpabio was a wise thing to do is a different thing, but regionally you have to do that balancing act.
Balancing is key, is what Mahmud Jega says. Kelly, let me bring the conversation to you right now. The truth is, in the ruling APC, we've seen aggrieved senators, and even in the House of Reps as well, where we even saw the G7 emerge. Well, even though as the day goes by, some of them are withdrawing from that. But Nigerians are wondering, time is really going, and the time for, them to really decide who gets what is close by. Are you optimistic that the APC will be able to get its house in order to be able to speak with one voice and decide, who gets what, in the spirit of fairness and equity, having that at the back of your mind?
Well, the APC actually have seen what happened in 2015 when Saraki was produced and Dogowa was, and they also were not able to produce the Speaker of the House of Rep, their desired choice. And so I believe that they should learn from that experience. Well, maybe zoning should have been done and they shouldn't have named specific individuals. But certainly, at this point in time, the individuals have been named. Like I have strongly said, Akpabio's choice is a square peg in a square hole. But if you look at it again, the North Central has a strong case. They gave the second largest votes to the APC. But if you also remember that Mark was the Senate president for 8 years, Saraki was the Senate president for 4 years, so you also have to take that into consideration. There must be give and take, there must be balance, and there must be negotiations. But if you are going to carry the North Central along, that might be just the only area you might look at it in terms of the speakership of the Federal House of Representatives. That might just be the balancing you might look at. For the Senate, I think they have done a good job of it. And again, the APC should also be aware that Nigerians are looking at the government to settle down, and not even the issue of zoning. The economy is going at a time where GDP is beginning to be threatened to go almost at a negative level. The 3.2% growth that was forecasted is not being achieved at this material point in time. The economy is at a time where prices are being, in fact, inflation is almost going to go beyond the threshold of 20%, and it becomes it will stabilize at that material point in time. But Akpabio has come in and said, the debts are going to be paid. We are going to look at all these issues. And the APC should also realize that this election is being challenged at the tribunal, which is very key. And so Nigerians are looking at how the government is, first of all, going to take its decisions when they come in on the 29th of May. But the National Assembly is very key. They don't want a rubber stamp National Assembly. They want a National Assembly that will have people who are going to take decisions that would trickle down to the masses and will reflect on the pockets of the people and on the economy of the country. So those are the tasks that are going to be before them, beyond just deciding on ensuring that the APC produces the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, the Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker.
Kenny, if you don't mind, I want to take this back to you. Jega has said specifically, perhaps it wasn't a bad thing to take it to the south, but what doesn't seem right was to allot it, attach same to a name. Now, if you look at some of the key names from Nigeria's southern region, talking about some ranking senators, you also have names like Kalu, Orji Uzo Kalu. Shouldn't the party have allowed the region to actually elect someone to ultimately represent the region?
I think the zoning was specifically zeroed down to the south-south. Orji Uzo Kalu is from the southeast. And again, if you look at the Southeast, for example, I made a case for the Southeast to become the president of Nigeria when I was in the PDP. So the Southeast cannot make any claim at this material point in time to the Senate president. Why do I say this? What was the percentage of the vote that they gave to the APC? It was almost like 1% of the votes that they gave to the APC. And again, if you look at it, the Southeast has had 5 Senate presidents from 1999 till date. You have had an Ewerem, you have had a Wabara, you have had an Nnamani, you have had Okolugbo, and you have had the other man from Ebonyi State. I cannot remember his name now. And you have also had Ekweremadu, who has been Deputy Senate President for 12 years. So it's not even about if the Southeast has been carried along. What the Southeast was supposed to be fighting for should have been the presidency of this country and not even for the Senate President. And of course, you had the Peter Obi who tried to become the president and had the backing of the youths and the hurricane movement from Labour, which gave him over 6 million votes. But today, he's not the president of the country. So the reality has to be told that the president of the country or the president-elect who is going to be inaugurated on the 29th of May is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who you did not give your votes. So what did you bring on the table? That's the question you're going to ask yourself. I mean, you can see Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a strategic player. He's already negotiating with Kwakwansu to bring him on board, which will be very key because you're going to have 19 House of Rep members coming in from Kano and 2 senators coming in from Kano. If you get a Kwakwansu and you have a governor also coming in from Kano on board. So this politics is not a game of sentiments. It's a game of what you bring on the table and how you're able to negotiate. And I think that's exactly what has led to the rise of Senator Akpabio. And Akpabio is a very deft negotiator. You can't take that away from him.
Well, Mahmud Jega, as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, the truth is, some would say at this point in time, we shouldn't be looking anymore as to what region brought how many votes to what political party. Right now, it should be about justice and fairness to be seen to have been done. But as we wrap up these conversations right now, the APC, they still have the bulk of the work. And the fact that we're still seeing a divided house till now, how optimistic are you that the consultations which the national chairman has promised will be able to get everyone to sheath their swords? And those aggrieved politicians, how do you think they can be placated at this point in time?
Probably a time will never come when you can convince everybody, because this is a clash of personal ambitions and aspirations. And when a party is negotiating, all kinds of issues are thrown in. He mentioned what a politician brings to the table. And really, when politicians sit down to negotiate positions after an election, that is the most important thing. And a lot of the problems that we see in the election of snatching ballot boxes and violence is caused by anticipation of this. Because if, as a leader of the party in a particular area, you don't deliver any votes, then when it comes time to sit down and discuss, you don't really have anything to say, because people will say, how many votes did you bring from your area? So it's very important. But a situation arises like it has arisen in the country right now, where even that consideration has to be subjugated to the higher issue of the perception of balancing. Because otherwise you can say even the South did not really produce a lot of votes for APC, for example, compared to the North Central. But because you don't want too much crisis in the polity, you have to do this kind of zoning arrangement. So everything is dictated by the circumstances in which you find yourself. Yeah. But there may never be a complete agreement. However, APC is probably encouraged by the fact that the opposition, the 7 opposition parties are right now disorganized. They could not even produce a candidate, and some of them are already negotiating with APC. So maybe that's why they are confident.
Right. Okay, so fine place for us. So many thanks for being such nice company, Mahmud, Jega, and Kenny Okolugbo.